you are gonna see some cool ass shit.
Yeah, you don't want two Flavor Flays.
Heart transplants, brain surgeries. I've seen it all.
Dude, that's fucking dope.
Walk up and just get it, whatever it is.
Yeah, brother.
I'm trying not to laugh, bro, but Josh is fucking killing me.
Guess what Navy SEALs do, motherfucker? They communicate and they're on the same fucking page.
Whoa.
Well, we're live.
Welcome, everybody, back to the Happy Hoodlums podcast. It's your host. We got Zach losing his neck over there already, Mr. Flexery Sampson. I don't know.
I like that. Flexery Sampson. Zachary
Yeah.
Sampson. Hell yeah.
Yeah,
Flexeriah.
go ahead. Name your son that one day. And it's Kemper Woodruff. If you don't know, you should. What the fuck's wrong with you? And we're back. So, one of the things we wanted to kind of open the show with is letting you know some new stuff that's coming. We've teased it for a long time about Joe Aguilar's, documentary that we've been working on for a long time. Zach is officially cutting up the film footage that we've put together from different interviews. So you should start seeing some segments from that popping up. So keep an eye out there. And then we had some backpack work also with Alex McClula, where we did one-on-one. And these are some real life stories from 5 incredible gentlemen. I think only 4 of them wound up getting published because we messed up one. And we still apologize to Mr. Willie. I tell you what, he's one of the best gentlemen I've ever met. He's looked out for me since that day, texts me every single day. Just these are solid dudes that have learned some real life lessons through hard experiences that led them into the system and incarceration. And, finding God and faith again in the world through all of that. And they're all pillars in their communities. And so really watch those. They're about 15 minutes long a piece, 10 to 15 minutes, and they're solid.
Yeah.
Some of my favorite work we've ever done, honestly.
Yeah. They are they took a lot of edit time and a lot of pre-production. So I didn't do shit for pre-production, but I was like, yeah, I'm here.
Whoa. When I move, my camera looks so crazy right now.
Yeah, it's just a little blurry.
Are
It's
you
like
seeing
my
that
camera.
too?
Yeah, my camera looks blue. So I mean, some shit's going on with Discord apparently, but
Dude, honestly, I've had so many weird things go on with my head that I thought I was tripping for a second. So
Nope.
I'm just gonna look at you the entire time. I'm happy you're seeing that too.
Yeah, it's not just you.
So
You're
I was
good, bro.
about to have a little bit of anxiety. I was like, oh shit, what's going on?
You're like, oh fuck. Okay.
But other than that, another thing that I kind of want to start out talking this episode a little bit on is this book that I've been reading called The Greatest Salesman in the World by O.G. Mandingo.
Oh yeah, you mentioned this. You mentioned this a while back.
Or
last time we recorded.
It's actually Mandino, not Mandingo, but he wrote the shit out of this book. It's so good and it's so readable that and it's such a journey because it's a book that's teaching you principles, but it's all told through a story.
Yeah.
And so he's really just infusing you with these characters that give you these gems along the journey of a man becoming the greatest salesman in the world.
So
right?
Is it like one big story or multiple small stories?
It's the story of a man at the height of his career in the beginning of the book, and he winds up giving it all away, right?
Okay.
This fortune he's amassed. And his assistant doesn't understand it, and so he's telling the story to his assistant of why he's doing what he's doing.
Okay.
And so it's kind of about him becoming an apprentice and how he became a salesman. And this book is so good. I've forced myself to only read one chapter a day because I want to read it all the way through.
Yeah.
but it's so meaningful and impactful, but it's like magic as fuck at the same time.
Okay.
So I'm just enjoying my way through it little by little. Um, the only other book that I can come up with that holds a candle to it is The Alchemist. And The
Okay.
Alchemist, if you haven't read that book, phenomenal.
Mhm.
Um, but there's something to me about books set in like ancient times
Yeah.
that have a sense of like magic to them and just like wisdom expressed through story. I love it.
I have a hard time with story books specifically, like especially when you have to like visualize things. Like I'm good at visualizing, but it's hard for me to read it and also put an image to it. And so like
Hmm.
storybooks don't really work for me because when I'm reading, all I see really is like the images, unless I trail off on a random ass thought that has nothing to do with the book. So it's like
I,
even listening to it is kind of hard.
I
But
think for me, like the harder it is for me to deal with like more screen time,
mhm.
the more I'm like drawn just towards books and the imagination aspect of it. And I love it. I love being told a story. And I think like this is reigniting some like little kid piece of me.
Yeah,
Cause when I was little, God bless my mom, man. She would go to the library and she had these like totes, like about this wide when they were all filled with books. And she would get two totes and we would take them back to the house. And every night we would read. And we always read until we fell asleep pretty much. And she would, have my brother and I, and we would all read in bed together, right? And I remember like my mom would be so tired um, that she would fall asleep. And so, really, one of the things that taught me how to speak was my mom couldn't read these books to me because she was so exhausted. And so, she would try her best, but she would like fall asleep. And I would pick up the book and finish the story so we could have our story time. And so, like, it's really interesting because I my brother had and ADHD and ADD are just like something that like runs in my family
yeah,
really strong, and like my brother was so into like running around and doing stuff that he had a little bit harder time focusing and like learning to read. So when I was young, um I remember I actually would learn to read as my brother was learning to read, even though I'm like 2.5 years younger than him. So I actually kind of learned to read by the time I was like 3 years old, um, which is
fuck,
pretty crazy. Like when I was like 3 or 4 years old, I could legit like read and sound out words and everything. Um, and so by the time my mom and dad were like officially divorced, I think I was maybe like 4 or something. And so at night I would read us to sleep, and we would all go to bed that way. But that's one of the reasons why like stories are so impactful to me, and I love like imagination based things that are kind of like magical. Because I read a fuck ton of kid books. Like I don't know any child that's read more kid books than me.
see, I'm kind of like
Little kid
that,
books,
but like
the thin one.
I prefer my own imagination. So
Mm-hmm.
like reading someone else's story is not really like my favorite thing to do, but writing my own would be a far more entertaining task for me. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so like when it comes to reading, I pretty much only really read uh like I don't know what the genre would be, but like not I don't know, fucking not nonfiction, but just like
Autobiography.
philosophical shit, fucking real shit, I guess. Um,
Yeah.
biographies, fucking philosophy, uh, different books based on skills and shit like that. So it's like I don't know, but yeah, I didn't get story time as a kid. I got sang to for a little while. Like I remember
That's
my
cool.
mom singing to me. Probably up until we moved to Oregon, maybe shortly after. So I was like right around 6 or 7 when it stopped. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but after that stopped, she just started scratching my head, like rubbing my head until I fell asleep. Um,
Yeah.
and so it's like I didn't really get a whole lot of that, but um, yeah, I don't know. Books are just cool. They get cooler as you get older because you can just read your own books. You don't have to be forced to read whatever someone tells you to read. Um, I don't know.
Yeah.
You can just kind of pick
It's
up whatever you
interesting
want.
because I loved reading when I was like really little,
Yeah.
and then when I was in like elementary school, my brother read way more than me, but I did not like enjoy reading because I read really slow,
Mm.
and I had a hard time like reading things out loud for whatever reason when I was little, um, and so uh, I guess like there was a huge phase where I really didn't like read books at all. I would just listen to people speak. And I still love stories, but it was more like I would either watch movies or listen to like interviews. If there was ever an interview, like I'm glued to it. And I think like sermons and like theology, like that's why I love like the Bible so much. There's so many stories in there. Um, and so much to kind of like figure out in the messaging in there that I really got like I've spent so many countless hours getting lost in that. But yeah, The Greatest Salesman in the World by OG Mandino, probably one of the best books that you can freaking read, and it's super palatable.
Fuck yeah. I might have to check it out after I get through this fucking stack of books on my nightstand. I've got like
Mm-hmm.
5 books.
Yeah, I know
So,
what you mean. I got books and books and books.
dude, I asked for way too many books for Christmas and people actually got me books. So I'm like So, I got like 4 or 5 books for Christmas and it was insane. So, uh I'm working my way through those. But
Under my bed, there's just stacks of books like all next to each other.
yeah, bro. So, I don't have that many
Yeah.
books, but like cuz I like you, I'm also a slow reader, but I don't spend a whole lot of time every day reading. I'll
Mhm.
maybe spend like at most maybe 20 minutes at night reading.
Mhm.
And so like that for me is perfect. I used to read. I got through like a book every 2 months when I was reading during my workouts because that'd be like two
Mhm.
hours of almost straight up, just straight reading. Um,
Give me
damn,
1 second.
yeah. What the fuck was that?
I don't know. What are you doing?
Well,
Well, quit banging shit around. Did you break the
uh oh.
tile? No. Goodness gracious. Pardon the intermission.
Yeah.
My brother's lifting weights and decided to drop one on the floor.
Oh fuck. Okay. All right. Well,
Going to
uh,
failure.
going to absolute failure, brother. Um, but yeah, so I was just chopping away through books. I used to just read a fuck ton in a day, but now I just like to do it to relax and shit. So,
Mm-hmm. For sure.
but
I think especially I've always wanted to write children's books, but now like with my daughter being born, I really want to kind of like hone in on that and maybe write something and then find someone to do some pictures for it.
okay. Well,
I think that would be
what kind of like children's book would you write
every one of them would teach a lesson.
though? Okay.
Like I really want them to be centered around like personal development, but told in like a very simple story using characters that aren't like human. I like using like animals and kind of humanizing an animal or things like that.
Okay.
Maybe giving life to like a tree. And so like the way that a child would view the world is like everything as living, and like, everything being kind of magical. um I think that's super important, because my mom, she always made life really magical, like, because it's important for kids to experience joy, and the to understand that you can make life magic.
Yeah.
And when I was younger, like for instance, when it would be St. Patrick's Day, my mom would dye the toilet water green. She would put food coloring in the toilet
Oh,
and
okay.
be like, "The leprechauns came. They were pissing in your toilet again." Like, just like random things, like
Yeah.
if it was Christmas time, my mom would take like my dog's paw and dip it in the ashes in the fireplace, and like sign eat the cookies, that we put out. We would always put out Christmas cookies. She would eat them, my dad would eat them, and they would put like a stamp from the dog on like a note from Santa. So Santa would leave us a note thanking us for the cookies, and Rudolph would like put a paw print on there or something.
Yeah.
And as a kid, you don't know the difference between a hoof and a
No,
and a
not
paw
at
print.
all. Not at all.
When it was like magical, you're like, "What, dude?" And they're like, "Oh, Santa was here."
Yeah.
Um, but just every single thing had something. Like, there's all festivities. Um, and I think one of the really cool things about the church we went to, living in Richmond Center, it incorporated like all faiths. So they would have speakers. Like, I've told the story of, the monk that like saved my life.
Yeah.
Um, and just different things like that, where it was like you were always hearing different stories, different people's ways of life and perspectives. And I just fell in love with that. And I feel like kids can really appreciate life differently and take on like a level of ownership for their like experience through creativity if they're shown that early, like that it's
Yeah.
an option, rather than just looking at things like, no, Santa isn't real, that's not what happens, I buy these gifts, like that's not the point, you know?
I think what would be cool is like obviously like a book would be cool, but with how digital the current era is, I would just turn your you could write the books, but turn them into like mini episodes and just start a whole series of like animated things so that they can actually see the things alive if you wanted to, right?
Hmm.
Which would be just as cool. Um, there's something else I had, but I forgot it, so never mind.
I like that. I wouldn't not do that, but to me, like, there's something special about reading that you don't get just watching. I don't know what it is about the engagement of your mind, and the fact that, like, I really don't believe that all the screens that we look at are actually like beneficial to our brain's processing, like the way in which we process.
What do you mean?
Um, I think there's something different from me reading something and looking at the pictures and putting it together in my brain, like the work of it, versus just observing something. And I think there's something to, um, like, everything is living, everything is conscious. So I feel like that this book, even though it's a book, like it contains like a consciousness to it, like an energy and a frequency to it.
Mm-hmm.
And um it's just different. It's different
I
than what
think
you
it's
get through a
nostalgic
screen.
for you. That possibly could just be what it is. And another thing, it's like, um, if putting something together and figuring it out is the thing that drives your mind, then you would also make the books that way, and then you would also make the animations that way too. So like, think about it of like a crime show, right? For
Mhm.
example, they give you they build the plot. They give you all the information, and if you're smart enough, you could figure it out before the end of the show, potentially, right? And so you could formulate it the same way. You can still make it engaging so that if someone were to think about it, they'd be able to put puzzle pieces together. But you got to do it in a different way rather than doing it through the imagination. You have to do it in like bits and pieces of information.
I think what's different though about books is like because you have to read what's going on to understand what's coming next, you're stuck in this moment where you're like watching a TV show, you can guess at the next moment because you're not having to like stay on track with it where it's at. You like have the ability to almost like this is on automatic and I'm able to like look over here where it's kind of going, where when I'm reading like I'm stuck where I'm at. If I like there's really no way for me to skip ahead in that same way that you get with a TV show, if that makes sense. I don't know if I'm explaining that well enough.
I'm tracking it, but I think that's like cuz I can fucking do that. I can almost do that on anything that I'm doing. And it's like cuz you can think forward even when you're reading. Right? Because it's all the same. It's a script that's being read out loud compared to a script that you're just reading in your head.
I don't know. I have a difficult time doing it. So maybe it's just a me thing.
Maybe it is.
I don't know.
But I don't know. I'm not trying to shit on you, but
No, I'm not taking it that way. I'm just saying I think there's a difference. And that might be
well, there is,
the
but
reason.
the issue is that
reason
we're
why.
becoming more and more digital. So if you're gonna like holding on to the idea of when you were 4 years old, looking at a book, when you didn't have an iPad in front of you all the time, right? That's different. If we were in what fucking 99, 2000, that would be different. It'd be a different
Yeah, I
story.
feel like with the evolution of consciousness, like the souls that come into the world when they do, like they're ready for like that era of life.
100%.
And um so maybe you're right in that regard. Like I know my daughter loves Coco Melon.
Well,
You
dude,
play some Coco Melon.
here's the other
Or oh
crazy
man.
thing. Kids nowadays, younger and younger, are becoming more efficient and more capable of using technology faster than their parents did, and even better at an earlier age than their grandparents, for example. Right? So, like, your daughter by 4 years old might be able to use her phone, a phone, an iPad, or a laptop 10 times better than you just because of the generation that she comes up in.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of that and neuroplasticity, but um
Well, of
that
course.
comes down to, the proteins, the neural proteins in our brain. But um yeah, yin yoga actually produces more of that. And it's actually called BDNF. And although that sounds kind of like a kinky acronym, it actually means that it's a neuroprotein that can turn into whatever your brain needs in order to develop a pathway, or like repair a synapses or something of that nature.
I just want to say that you turned an acronym into a kinky acronym by taking two letters from two different acronyms. You did BD and then you took off the SM and then you had NSFW and you took the NF and combined them and you're like, that's kinky.
It sounds like it. You know what I mean? I don't know what you do in your spare time, but it just sounds suspect.
It
Uh,
definitely could if that's where your mind's at for sure.
but
But all
what
right.
else you got on your list to talk about? What you got on your mind?
I mean, I guess we could keep it on the topic of books and go back to the book that I've mentioned a few times on the podcast called "The Courage to Be Disliked."
Hmm.
And the part that I'm reading, it's essentially all about like interpersonal relationships, and it breaks down a bunch of different like aspects of interpersonal relationships and how to like um, get rid of them essentially. Not relationships, but the problems within the interpersonal relationships.
Okay.
And one of the things that I personally like about what I've read recently is the separation of tasks. And so essentially what the separation of tasks is let's just say hypothetically I made I made a life choice and you didn't support it.
Mm-hmm.
And you looked down on me for that, right? And you were like, dude, why would you do that? That's so stupid. It doesn't make any sense. Outside of like obvious bad shit like hardcore drugs, killing someone, robbing someone, whatever, right? Outside of that stuff, like let's say I went and got a job and you're like, dude, that's such a fucking stupid job. I don't know why you would get that fucking job. Um, that the task of you not liking that job, you not liking my decision is not my task. So I don't have to make you like that for me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the task of like thinking of something is yours. So it's a separation. So rather than taking that as mine and being like, oh, okay, now I have to get a job that Kemper approves of, right? That would be
Yeah.
me taking on your task because it's your problem that you have to work out that you don't like the job that I got. It's not
Yeah, it's
mine.
my problem that I think you're a bitch. I'm just
Exactly. I don't give a fuck what you think about me. You could think I'm a bitch all day long. Fucking, I'm gonna keep operating the same way I operate. And so that's the separation of tasks. You keep doing what you want to do while obviously respecting people, not treating people like shit, but
Yeah, of course.
separation of tasks. And it's the same way for like parents, right? Like if I did like let's say my parents didn't like me doing the podcast. Well, I'm going to keep doing the podcast, right? It's their job to either accept it or not. It's not my job to make them accept it. And so that's the separation of tasks. And it makes when I started like I've kind of practiced it for a long time, but since
Mm-hmm.
I've started reading this book, I started understanding it more and it brings a lot of peace because it takes away arguments. Because you don't
Mm-hmm.
now all of a sudden like if I say something or a decision that I want to make and I tell someone about it and they're like, "Oh, I mean that doesn't really make any sense. Why would you do that?" I'm like, I just want to." And if they don't like it, I'm just like, "Okay, that's fine. That's cool. I'm not going to be hurt about it, but I'm going to do it anyways." You know.
Yeah, that's interesting because I feel like that's something that is like behind the art of cold calling. Like because when I'm like at the brokerage or something and I'm calling around looking for people that I can help,
Mhm.
well, a lot of people don't think that you're helping them. They in fact believe because you're interrupting their day that your intent is to do the opposite of that. Is to fuck them over. And so, like, in order to remain in this place where you can actually be like helpful, you have to remain more than hopeful. You have to stay in like a state of knowing that all you're trying to do is help somebody. And it's this matter of like who can you help and who can't you help. But you develop this like resilience within yourself almost because you're facing so much rejection.
Yeah.
You know, like out of 400 phone calls, you might have somewhere between 3 and 10 that go all right, right, and like back to back to back to back to back,
Yeah.
like, and you have to keep yourself in that mode, you know, um, and that it's weird. It's like there's a level of dissociation that you have to have. Um, from this other person, although you're really trying to like help them, you're like allowing them to own their experience in a very full way. Does that make sense?
I understand that. I'm not I'm trying to connect it to like the separation of tasks, but
Where you're
um,
saying like it's for them to decide how they feel about what you're saying, you know?
exactly,
It's
and it
not
has
for
nothing to
me to
do with you.
convince. Yeah, it's not for
Yeah,
me to convince you that this is right for you. Like,
exactly.
and that comes back to like you can't help somebody or like force motivation onto somebody,
Yeah,
right?
or like you can't help
And
someone who doesn't want to be helped.
and
You
so
know.
one of the biggest things in sales is like understanding what someone's motivation
Yeah.
is, how you can help coerce them through this experience, I guess, because they're naturally going to run into roadblocks themselves, and it's a scary experience for a lot of people because you're talking about their biggest asset, right?
Yeah. Well, I
That
mean,
they
dude, that's
even
the same way with like coaching people. In order to
Mhm.
actually have like an efficient method of like nutrition coaching or personal training someone, you need to know one, what motivates them, and two, what their goals are. And if you
Mhm.
don't know those two things, it's going to be really hard to direct someone as well as kind of like push them when they need to be pushed. And
Mhm.
so it's like motivation and goals on their own is like a really big thing to just, if you know that about somebody, you know a lot about them
Mhm.
in retrospect, or not even retrospect, but in like hindsight, whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
But
It's interesting, especially doing that like upon first interaction,
yeah,
because it's almost like you're calling around and you're looking for people that are either in utter bliss or complete distress, right?
yeah,
Like either someone's really happy, they just got married, they just had a baby, their business is doing good, they're finally like ready to get on with investing, or you're coming up with people that are like, hey, we got to go our separate ways, someone died, whatever, right? Someone's in foreclosure, like all these different things. And so like you're catching these people in these really like awesome pivotal moments in their life. And I say awesome because of the power, like the power of influence. Because the more calls you make, you see like people who are affected and had a negative experience with like real estate in their investing journey, and they're like their demeanor and the way that they interact with you is so like dismissive and like fuck you, like you're trying to hurt me
yeah,
and bring me back to this scary place. Other people who have had a great experience, they're way warm, if they've got a decent portfolio of stuff. Like truly, I've talked to some investors on the phone where I might call them up and see if they're interested in buying or selling a property. They're like, no, not right now. And you're just like, well, before you get off the phone, like, if you were looking for something, like, what would be something that's ideal for you? Because I'm looking at it all the time. And these people are so warm about it. They'll sit there and they'll give you 10, 15 minutes because they know that you're really trying to help them.
yeah,
And they're like, shit, if I don't have to find it myself, you got yourself a deal. And it's so interesting the difference between these people because like investors, true investors are like, I don't give a fuck how much the the deal costs, If the numbers pencil out, dude, I'm in. Say less, I'm there. And yes, I would love for you to be my agent in that because you deserve it.
yeah,
And it's this totally different mindset from someone else who's like more frugal and they're like, oh, like, why should I pay you 1% more than someone else? And you're like, well, that's really short sighted because say you pay me, 10,000 more, but I saved you $40,000. Like, are you really out the money? And in a weird way, there's this thing of like, if I let you easily talk me out of my own worth, you're not going to trust me to negotiate for you. So even though we're like on the same side, right? I have to like almost like battle with your mindset a little bit. Not so much with you, but just your mindset so you
yeah.
understand. Yeah. levels of investment is a very interesting thing, um, especially the closer to home it gets. So what you're talking about, where it's like I take care of what's on my side of the fence,
Yeah.
and you take care on yours. That's a real life fucking skill that takes a lot of maturity and a lot of time and tough situations to learn how to navigate that sometimes.
And it takes being like conscious
Mhm.
because like even myself, right? I catch myself wanting to help people with their shit, their problems,
Mhm.
and their feelings and shit like that. And as much as I want to be there for people, if you're not willing to change and put the work in to improve whatever aspect of your life that you're not satisfied with, and then you come to me for help, but you're not going to change, then I instantly am just like, okay, this is what you have to do. Like you got to do it kind of on your own at this point because you're not willing to change, and I'm not able to convince you to do that. So,
Mhm.
and if you're not going to, then coming to me is essentially pointless because I'm only going to sit here and try to give you the different ways that you can improve whatever situation you're not happy with. So
Mhm.
you may as well find somebody else, a therapist probably, to just vent to because that's their job, is just to listen. And essentially, they're
Yeah.
going to do the same thing that I'm going to do, which is just talk you. Like, I'm going to talk and tell you what you could do. A therapist is going to walk you through it. So, like, I don't give a fuck. Go do what you need to do. But if you're willing to change and you want help, I'm willing to like, talk it out with you and figure out. Because, like, being in, like, fitness, what you learn is that life is extremely adaptable. There's not one way to do things, right?
Mhm.
Some people grow muscle better by doing partial reps rather than full range of motion reps. And it's the same way as the mind and life in general. It's like not everything is going to work for everyone. And so talking it out and talking out solutions and being like, okay, what about this? Not that. All right, what about this? Boom, boom, boom. Work on that. Build a block. Okay, now we ran into something that you're not cool with. We take that and we shift the block around now. And it's like, that's what I'm willing to do with somebody. But if you're going to put roadblocks in your way by being like, well, no, like, not that. Well, what about this? It's always stopping me. I'm like, all right, well, then it looks like you're just not going to work out. Like, if someone doesn't have the energy to work out after work, but I'm like, well, maybe eat a green apple before you get off work. That's basically the equivalent of a cup of coffee, but you'll digest it better and it won't keep you awake for as long. And then,
Really?
yeah, yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
I didn't know that.
yeah. So I'd be like, do that and then go work out. You will get energy when you start working out. That's what happens. Blood flow creates energy, essentially, kind of. Um, and then you'll be fine. But if you're like, oh, I'm just so tired, it's like, well, what's your job? Is your job sitting at a desk? Okay, well, then you're not tired, you're just mentally tired. So you can get to the gym and still get a good workout. Is your job construction? All right, so you're physically tired. Maybe you need a mental exercise rather than a physical one. And so, like, people constantly like putting roadblocks in their way not to improve, those are the people that I kind of like, that's your problem now. I'm not dealing with you. I'll be here for you if you decide that it's your time. But like I'm separating the tasks. It's no
Mhm.
longer my job to convince you to want to change. If you want to change, you come to me and I'll help.
There's a huge difference between being solution oriented and problem oriented
Yeah.
in your thinking, right?
Yeah.
Um, some people are like driving right into the wall, and other people are trying to figure out if that wall is really the issue,
Or
right?
or if there's a way to drive around it or climb over it,
That's what I'm saying. Like,
right?
is the wall really the issue?
Exactly.
And you know that's the big difference between it. And I will say I've had such an interesting journey through cold calling,
Mhm.
and I feel that cold calling people in abundance is a crazy way to level up in personal development.
Yeah.
Like, because it's so not what you want to fucking do,
Yeah.
especially in the beginning. And there's days where like you're like, man, this is not what I want to do. But in order to actually do it and to be effective while you're doing it and not just wasting your time, you have to truly be like invested in it and also detached from the immediate result of this one phone call. You have to
Yeah.
have such a like strong mindset and acceptance of yourself and what your purpose is in this, um for you to facilitate this conversation to even go beneficially for both people, because the last thing I want to do is call somebody and they're like, you fucking dickhead. Like, that's not really what I want to do.
Yeah.
Man, I might deal with a bunch of that, in order to get to something else. But I've also noticed, like, if you let people know that you like appreciate their time, or like just like you're really direct in your addressing of things, you know um it goes a lot farther. But the point of what I'm saying really is, like, as a personal development tool that I totally underestimated, cold calling makes you um like fortified in a strange way to rejection. Like,
Yeah.
it is such a radical tool for self transformation.
If you're worried
Uh,
about rejection, then 100%. I think that's like maybe like for people who are still okay with rejection, but like maybe take time to bounce back from it, or they're like, "Fuck, man!" Like they just think about it all day. But I don't know.
well,
I could
I
personally
have,
never do cold calling, dude. I can't stand getting cold called, and it irritates the living fuck out of me. And I would rather just fucking anyone who brings it up to me, I'm like, pass. I'm good.
most people would rather do public speaking than cold calling. Like, and at the end of the day, like, it's because of that. Like, dude, I that's the last shit that I wanted to do. But now I've like kind of started to like it.
Yeah.
And um it's almost like it makes you so okay with handling discomfort. Because guess what? You're going to be uncomfortable, and it's going to take 2 seconds. You're going to get rejected, and then you're going to be uncomfortable again because you're constantly dealing with the unknown. I do not know what's going to happen when this person picks up their phone. I know that there's probably a couple different routes of like objections that they're going to give me, because in real
Yeah.
estate, people are kind of just saying the same shit.
Oh,
The rates
interest
are high.
rates. Oh, money.
Your
Oh,
homes
it's
are
not.
too
Yeah.
expensive. You know,
Yeah.
it's not a good time. Like, people will give you basically the same objections, but the point is, you never know what you're going to deal with when you pick up that phone, and you're just constantly having to do it over and over and over and over again. And for you to not like absolutely break, it's like, and to like learn how to be effective and embrace it and not mind like the unknown, or you know, complete failure. Just complete fucking failure of you accomplishing your goal. Like, you're going to fail like 300, 400 times today.
Yeah.
You know, it's a crazy thing in terms of a personal development tool that I was so unaware about. So unaware about it. I'm
That's
still
what's up.
learning the effects of it.
That's what's up. I don't know, man. Like I just can't like I can get it in terms of like I don't know. I don't know. I can't stand it. Anytime I get a cold call, I instantly block that number afterwards.
Dude, I'm the same way.
I'm
And
like,
I
don't
do
ever
this.
call me again. I don't say that to them. I am polite, but as soon as they hang up, that number's blocked. I'm done.
Dude, I'm telling you, I'm the same way. Like, I'll hear my mom talking to somebody who's like cold called her, and I'll be like, hang up the phone, you know? And then
Yeah.
I'm like, oh shit, I'm that guy, right? And so, like, it's just such a hilarious thing, but you're looking at like the reps, right? Like, how many repetitions are you really doing? Like, when you're at the gym? And yes, it's uncomfortable, but like, imagine how many mental repetitions you're truly doing in a day
Well,
when you're cold calling.
how many cold calls do you make in a day, roughly?
Anywhere between 200 to 400.
Okay. I do close to 200 reps in a workout.
Yeah.
So that's
Well, I guess
about the same,
yeah.
And then how many days are
But
you
it's happening.
working how many days are you
It's
doing those calls every day?
every day, like 5 days a week.
5
But
days
it's
a week.
happening back to 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 back. You know,
Yeah.
with no real break in between.
And
Um,
then you got to think about, all right, well then when do you get the chance to learn from those calls? It's only when you take the break. Because then you
I
get to
don't know.
think.
Sometimes you're learning on the fly, and the weird thing is, it'll make you stumble. Like I remember in the beginning, like when I first started going through it, I was like, I feel so weird, like even trying. I didn't know where to start. And so like they give you a script to kind of start because they know what's about to happen. When
Yeah.
this first, they're only going to give you
Yeah.
a couple of answers, right? Try your best. And so, um, as I was starting this, like it felt really unauthentic, but then it started working, and I was like, okay, well, this is kind of weird, but it's almost like when you're boxing or something, or you're in a fight and you hit somebody and you're like, you're not really experienced. And all of a sudden, like you hit somebody and you hit them and it really like, it was a pretty devastating like move. You're like, oh shit, like these things work, like
Yeah.
you kind of feel that way. Like you don't really know how effective you can be. And all
Yeah.
of a sudden it happens, and it's like to stay in that pocket and not get like overly enthused, because all of a sudden you're doing this for the wrong reason. All of a sudden I'm not doing this to help somebody. The energy shifted. I'm doing this to help me. Ooh, money's on the line, right? And that's the wrong way to go about it.
Oh yeah.
But it's human. And you're like, whoa, shit. What? It's that easy. And then you're like, oh, all right. Then you fumble that person because they're like, they can smell it on you. You're not
Yeah.
authentic
You
anymore.
became a
You went
shark.
from, yeah, exactly. You went from
Yeah.
a loving little Labrador to a fucking shark in 2 seconds.
The other thing too, like, and I get it, like you can adapt a script, but what makes me laugh about cold calling scripts is like they always sound so cheesy because it's
Mm-hmm.
always like real. I can't think of an example, but it's always real proper, and it's always like, all right, what fucking dude from the fucking 1800s wrote this shit? Because I
Yeah.
feel like I need to be standing really straight up and down to say this right now, like I need to be like holding a book in my hand like this and fucking yeah. I don't know. It's been weird,
One.
but like I look at them and I think like, how would I adapt that to the way that I would want to just have someone cold call me, and it would always be like straight to the point. I'd be like, "Yo, I can help you with this. Are you interested?" And then if they're not, I'd be like, "Okay, let me ask you one more question." Ask them like an important question, and then let them go.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty much it. But I think also like some of the best, most substantial interactions I've had are just calling somebody and just saying, I just want to know if you need some help, brother. Just like that. Like, and if they're apprehensive, just, yeah, dude, I'm the cold call guy. I'm not wanting to take too much of your time. I'm just curious, because I know the last dude clearly didn't help you, so I'll be that asshole just to throw an olive branch out there
Yeah.
and see if there's anything you're looking for. And they're like, oh, all right, this guy is a human. And I'm like, yeah, dude, I know you're too busy to look for a house. Why don't you let me do it for you?
Yeah.
Like, oh shit, that's kind of yeah, you know.
Well, I almost feel like you've always said that you're the bro that snuck into places. You kind of just got to bro out your cold calls. Is essentially what it sounds like you've done.
A little bit, yeah.
You just got to make yourself that relatable bro on the beach. And it's like, "Hey, bro, you want to play some hacky sack?" like,
It's kind of like that.
Yeah.
Like, dude, do you want to get in the game or not? You know, it's that simple. I don't want to waste your time. I don't want you wasting my time, dude.
Fact.
And that's kind of a weird mind fuck to throw at somebody when you just interrupted their day. I don't want you wasting my time, bro. They're like,
Yeah.
what?
But like
You
I
called
just
me?
called you randomly, but don't waste my time. Don't waste my time. I called you for no like and you didn't even ask me to call you. You don't even know my
Jedi mind
name.
trick. They don't know what to do.
Yeah. Don't waste my time, dude.
But I will say this, bro. The get out of jail free card on all cold calls is a heavy accent. I call it the old no speaky speaky, bro.
Oh
I'm
fuck.
telling you, someone will answer their phone and, hey, bro, on everything I love, someone will get Chinese as fuck in 2 seconds after answering the phone speaking perfect English, bro.
Hello? Hi,
Yeah,
this is Kemper from
bro.
Madden Real Estate. Oh.
Anybody can do it. It happens to me all the time. A lot of Spanish families do it. A lot of Slavic families do it. But the Slavic families are kind of just like really quiet for some reason. They're really quiet and they're
Yeah.
just like, oh no, and just hang up the phone, right? But I tell you what, like the Hispanics and the Asians, bro, they hit you with that no speaky like real quick. Don't cancel me, y'all. It's the fucking truth. I would do the same thing, but the problem is I don't have a fucking accent.
If you could
Answer
speak
the phone.
Italian, bro, that'd be perfect. You just need to learn
Dude,
Italian.
I'd hit him with the beepy boppities
Yeah.
so fucking quick.
Hey, Maron, what a.
Bro, that's racist. What the fuck?
I don't give a
It's
bro.
not
Come
even
on.
how Italians speak.
I don't
They're
give a
all
fuck. You just hit him with the bippity boppity, and you're Italian. Like that's, I can at least say something that they say. Like,
That's American Italian.
who cares?
No.
It's Italian. Nobody cares if you're racist towards Italians.
Look, that's how important Italians are to American culture. They fucking oh no, that's Italian. If you're from New York,
Hey.
you're honorarily Italian somehow.
That entire city is basically just a bunch of Italian slang thrown into sentences. So yeah.
Super Guidos. I love it. Yeah,
Fuck,
but
bro.
no, it's honestly I've learned so much about myself and about like people from like cold calling. It's a interesting thing, and it's so it's so uncomfortable and like despicable that you have to truly be like one with your spirit. You have to go inside yourself and just truly want to help and like remain in this centered space, so detached. It's actually kind of fascinating.
Yeah, I could see it going one of two ways. I could see it going the way that you're explaining, where you're like detached and you want to be cool and helpful for people. But then I can also see it as like someone almost putting on like the psychopath type personality where they don't necessarily like associate with like normal people and they're just acting, they're just putting on an act to get you to fall into their trap so they can fucking jump on you. So I see it going
Yeah.
depending on the person, right? Like you're obviously not a fucking predatory person who's looking to take advantage of people, but there might be someone else out there who's trying to do that.
Bro, there's some people that if they were in the same room as me and they said what they said to me on the phone, I would slap the shit out of them.
Oh
And
yeah,
so
but that's
like I'm like
different. But most of the time, those people won't say that type of shit to people in person.
yeah.
They're
But
they're
like
essentially keyboard warriors to cold callers.
dude, I've had old ladies like cuss me out. Like
You've had
full
old
blown.
ladies fucking G check you too, apparently. So it's like,
Yeah. Anybody can do it, bro. It's 2024. They're going hard in the yard, these fucking grannies, dude.
Yeah, bro, they're wilding. Fuck.
Yeah. Surprisingly though, old dudes just want someone to talk to. Most of them.
Dude, I mean, as you get older, it's it's kind of what this could go into the fucking men's mental health thing, but it's like as you get older, you know, you don't get a lot of you don't have too many friends, and then as you get way older, your friends might die. You don't have a whole lot of time to get out and go see people, and then, you know, you're fucking like your kids don't call, and now all of a sudden you get a call from Kemper Woodruff, and he just wants, and then you start talking to him about fucking Vietnam and shit, and you're like, yeah, man. And it's like, dude, I just wanted to sell you a house.
Dude, all right. Do I have a story for you?
All right.
Shout out to John Dunn.
All right, okay. John Dunn.
This dude is so cool. First of all, he sounds like Tommy Chong.
Okay. Like all right.
Like the ultimate stoner. Hey, brother. Like, yeah. Awesome dude.
Hey, brother.
Super religious. Like this dude is a man of God. Like, okay. Me and him have had some interesting conversations. And I caught him just like cold calling one time. And the like dialer system uses like geographic location. So it'll just randomly like call people in one area, right? So the way this has happened, I'm telling you, this is divine like intervention, bro. Because I called this guy, had an incredible conversation. He walked all the way across America on some Forrest Gump shit. Like back in like the 70s. Yeah. Damn. He was like, God provides for me every day. No matter what, there's always enough for me to get through. And he just started walking and hitchhiked here and, you know, just camped out wherever he was, just did his own thing. Had tons of crazy experiences. People, you know, putting guns to his head, trying to rob him, like all types of encounters, right? He was telling me he wound up in Colorado. I think he was in like Aspen, Colorado or something.
Okay.
Or like just on it. He was trying to get to Aspen. But he was barefoot for 3 days in the snow with this dude. He was like, I didn't get hypothermia on my feet. He was like, I don't know how. He was like, but we were walking, you know, we got stranded and we just had to keep walking. And it took him 3 days. And he was like, yeah, he was like, I was so happy when I got in that car. He was like, man, no one can tell me nothing. Yeah. But this, okay, so this dude's telling me these stories and like explaining to me like about being in the like will of God and in the nature of goodness, you know, and staying in this place like spiritually where you know that you're provided for and loved and just being love and expressing that and stopping this once you understand what it means to be positive and to be negative and the effects of that in the world, to choose only to be positive and remain in that state where you're willing to act out of positivity and just follow whatever is laid out for you that day.
That right? Sounds a lot like a monk's journey of just like self awareness and self like learning, I guess. But yeah,
bro, it's discipleship.
Self-actualizing.
Divine discipleship, bro. And this dude is so cool. Anyways, so I called him once in one area, hang up the phone, right? Separate day, calling a complete other area, right? He comes up again. Okay, right on. Calling a list of people that his name wasn't like entered into because it was derived from like our website versus, you know, just white pages, you know, public information. 80,000 people on this call list, and this dude gets routed to me. And I called him and I was like, I just go through, hey, it's Kemper with Mate Real Estate. And he's like, hey, brother. He's like, John Dunn again. He was like, how's it going? He was like, well, he was like, good Lord's got a way of connecting us. He was like, and he's so cool. He was like, you can call me anytime, man. He was like, I'll talk to you whenever. He's so cool. So I've just been keeping dope. In touch with this guy that I met off of like cold calls, who's so rad.
That's dope. Fuck yeah. That is pretty sick though. That's like a cool like victory story for cold calling. Outside of like, oh, I made this big ass sale while cold calling. No, it's like, no, I met this cool ass dude while cold calling.
He's so
So,
cool. He's like, you ever want to come down to the shore? You can always come hang out with me, brother.
hell
He's like,
yeah.
I don't care. Like he's that chill. Like he's true like 70s to the core. Like that dude is a pure loving individual. And I don't think I can end this with you on any higher note than talking about that dude. So shout out to John Dunn.
Shout out to John Dunn.